We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
The age-old question, if you could go back in time and, let's get rid of the butterfly effect. You're not going to fuck anything up, and you don't have to stay there, but you just want to go back for a hot second and see something, but you're not going to ruin anything or die or anything like that. Where would you go?
So we can't go back in time and kill Hitler?
No, in this experiment, you're literally just gonna get to show up and see shit and be whoa,
cool.
But you're not going to affect anything or be able to do anything.
Kind of takes the pressure off. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two. Two. One, just because I'm such a huge Western fan, I would absolutely go back to the OK Corral and just experience that. That's kind of my fun one. And then my ultimate sort of conspiracy theory one is I would go back in time with a pair of binoculars to Dealey Plaza and pay attention to JFK and try to see what actually happened there.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't affect anything, if you just have to go back and be an observer, that's what I would do. I would go and I would observe that.
You're basically like Scrooge in the Christmas Carol. You're going back and you're seeing everything, but they can't see you, and you're not affecting anything or being affected. Yeah. That's what you would do.
That's what it would be. Yeah,
I like it.
What about you, EJ?
I would like to watch this a long span of time if I can. The interactions between the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals, and see how they responded to each other, what happened.
In their initial meetings.
Yeah,
right?
and then how it all kind of shook out in the end.
Right, because there's a theory that they interbred.
They did. Well, I mean, I did my DNA.
Sure, why wouldn't they?
Right.
And I have Neanderthal DNA. Everybody of European heritage basically kind of does. So we all it just depends on how much. And apparently I have more than many. So
wow, that's cool though.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But it's anyway, yeah. So they did interbreed, but I'd like to know what the Neanderthals what if they had a language, what was it like, and I don't know what the differences were between them and the Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I guess another one. I don't really have another one, but it would probably be somewhere around. I just want to watch the Jurassic period for a while.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see some dinosaurs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would go fucking see some dinosaurs. That would be so cool. Yeah. Especially if you knew that you weren't in actual danger, right? And also just to see the world back then, how wild it would have been, and by wild I mean plants and animals and things, no human, not touched by human civilization at all.
Yeah.
I think that would be so
beautiful.
So cool. It'd be beautiful. Yeah. And my second one, I think the medieval period has always fascinated me. Yeah. So again, if I was in no danger and could just wander around, I think I would want to go just see how different it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you, if you're doing that, do you go to, are you going into a castle seeing nobility, or do you want to go to the villages and see the regular population, or both, I guess?
I mean, I think I would do both. I would wander around. Oftentimes those villages and towns were clustered around castles, right, for protection.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'd probably just go somewhere in probably France, but maybe England, and just, I don't know, see what was going on.
Man.
Watch a joust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's just like the Ren Fair.
Yeah, just like it.
Just like it.
Popcorn and turkey legs and yeah. I would want to see the Battle of Sekigahara, the giant Japanese medieval battle that went down. I would like to see that.
Of course.
That'd be fucking badass.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so violent. I think that's I mean, war today is of course also violent, but I think the amount of just hand-to-hand combat that was happening in the medieval times, medieval period is
it's personal. Yeah. There you go. Well, I don't know why we're talking about this, but Matt will tell us in just a moment because we are slaying monsters and we are on Die Glocke part 4. I'm sorry. I almost said 2. Part 4. Last one.
See, you're going back in time already.
That's it. Oh yeah. And I have to say who we are. So that's Katie. We got Katie here.
Hello.
We got Maddie J.
Hello.
And I'm EJ. I did it all wrong.
Whatever. You went back in time.
Yeah.
We'll go back in time and we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Just like the Nazis.
With the power of editing.
Yeah.
You did it great. You're scrambling like time travel.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's the thing. That's kind of the question, right? So if you could go back in time and you could affect change, because in our example, it wasn't affecting change. But if you could go back in time and affect change, especially if you were on the losing side of a war, wouldn't that be the most powerful weapon of them all?
It would be.
Not tanks, not bombs, not anything else, but actually the ability to change the past and change reality. And that is going to be the subject of this episode of Die Glocke and the rise of Nazi occultism. So, when we last left Polish journalist and historian Igor Wachowski, he had been hot on the trail of a Nazi superweapon, Die Glocke, or the bell. He believed that it was an anti-gravity device, capable of generating self-levitation through antimatter. Wachowski had become convinced that the bell had been developed in a secret underground base near the Polish Castle Kashaz, part of Project Risa. These rumors were compounded over the decades because some of Project Risa's tunnels collapsed during the war. Although, archaeological expeditions continue, there's still big unknown of what is actually down there. And that, of course, makes it fertile ground for conspiracy theories. What if this tunnel system was more elaborate than we realized? What if there really were testing facilities down there? What if, like we talked about in the last episode, there's a train that's filled with lost Nazi gold that's down there? So Wachowski thinks he's about to crack this case open at this point. He's done all of his historical research. He thinks he knows what the bell is. He thinks he knows where it is. And remember, this was going to be the place that Hitler's seat, and there was this vast underground compound. This seems perfect to him. So he turned his attention to this area and the mines that were in the surrounding area. Because that seems like the most logical starting point, right? You already have established underground structures, and they're pretty close to what is going to be Hitler's bunker. So, makes sense. This is where we kick off Project Risa. And before we jump into all of this, let's take another situation check. We're about 20 years after Ernest Zundel and Miguel Serrano's crazy stories about Nazis flying saucers and bases under Antarctica, right? That was in the 70s, and Wachowski's doing all this research in the 90s. And even when Wachowski's researching this, these theories are fringe. But like every good conspiracy, they are based on a kernel of truth. The Nazis, maybe they didn't flee to underground bases in the Antarctic, but they were absolutely going to do that in Poland. That was a plan. So you see how that sort of changes and becomes apocryphally connected to Antarctic underground bases, right? Same idea. I think just enough time had gone by that the, quote unquote, surviving Antarctic Nazi saucer myth had time to cycle. And when it came back, this new generation of searchers led by Wachowski found themselves looking, they're rejecting some of the more egregious stuff. And they're looking at, if we take this with a kernel of truth, what is the more plausible explanation? Okay, maybe they're not in Antarctica. Maybe they're in these structures under Poland. And that leads him to these coal mines in Waldenburg. Now, these were just a stone's throw from Castle Kashaz, prime location for Project Risa, right? So Wachowski decided to take a trip to these mines himself and try to uncover the truth about what was going on underground and these alleged Nazi experiments. And he also recruited another journalist, the British aviation writer Nick Cook. Now, we haven't talked about this guy very much, but Nick Cook is the other sort of architect of all of Die Glocke and all of the rumors surrounding Die Glocke.
What decade is this again that they're doing this?
The 90s.
This
They're
is the
doing
90s.
these
Oh, gotcha.
investigations
Okay.
in the 90s.
Okay. Yep.
Cook was an award-winning journalist who wrote primarily on military topics. But for the last 10 years or so, he's been tracking a very particular story: anti-gravity devices. Through his research, Cook had become convinced that research into fuelless propulsion systems, or what he called zero-point energy, had been running in secret since the 1950s. Have anybody heard of zero-point energy before?
No, it's not the same then as anti-gravity?
No. So there's a distinction here. It's kind of the same, but it's kind of different.
Okay. And sorry, before you get into that, Matt, you were saying that this guy is like a serious journalist. He's not like a conspiracy theorist guy, but he becomes convinced that this is happening, or can you say more there?
He was a military and aeronautics journalist. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He wrote real legitimate papers on military aeronautics history. Yes.
Okay.
And I think, he got taken in by a lot of this, for sure. And he kind of jumps off the deep end as we go further and further along here.
Right.
And
that happens.
Yeah. And we'll talk about why he did, because, I'm a little sympathetic to him, because he got taken in by a long, well-developed series of conspiracy theories. But anyway, so zero-point energy is similar to anti-gravity, but the idea with zero-point energy is that if you can actually use these anti-gravity properties, so creating the negative apple, right, in our example, and use that as a source of propulsion and fuel. So, and I'm not an astrophysicist. I don't really understand the entire, but the idea being that if we could actually harness the anti-gravity that was being created by an anti-gravity device, we could then use that as a source of propulsion and fuel, and that could be used to power cars and planes and trains and anything without needing to drill for oil or even use electricity or nuclear power or something like that.
Yeah, or solar energy or anything like that.
Revolutionize the world.
Well, the theory is that anti-gravity then creates energy as a byproduct.
Right.
Is that true, or is that just a...
True is a hard... It's hard because it's theoretical.
It's a theory.
Yeah, it's theoretical
anti-gravity
physics.
is still a theory. It's not a proven idea yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, here's what I would say, because I learned something cool the other day through the Instagram of the International Space Station. I think that's the Instagram account I saw it on. But regardless, it was astronauts at the International Space Station, and they were filming to show that the reason, well, one of many reasons that they make rooms on the International Space Station small, and the reason that when you see astronauts, they always are sort of like staying around the edges and like holding on to things or like being able to touch the wall, is because when you're in space, if you get stuck and you can't reach anything to push or pull yourself, you are stuck. And they prove it by they set one of their friends in the middle of the room, and they're all filming him, and he's swimming, he's trying to get himself, and he doesn't move. He's just moving in the same spot. So
it's horrifying.
It's horrifying. Yeah. So the reason I'm illustrating that or saying this is because obviously I don't know anything about this either. So listeners, feel free to write in and say how I'm wrong, or why this theory, if it's real beyond conspiracy theory, why people think it might work. But anti-gravity doesn't have propulsion is what I'm saying, because when there's no gravity, you can't push yourself. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well,
so are they saying that the forces working on each other to create the anti-gravity is the thing that would create the propulsion?
So, and we're all kind of bumbling in the dark here,
yes,
admittedly.
I'm asking questions we can't answer, but
the way that I understand it is that, it's not Einstein, it's Heisenberg. Heisenberg's principle was that you cannot, the uncertainty principle, you can't observe something and know its speed, right? Essentially that everything is moving all of the time is what Heisenberg said. And so the idea is that on a quantum level, as far as I understand it, on a quantum level, the molecules that make up everything in the universe are still moving. So if you could create a state of anti-gravity where you now have your apple and your negative apple and they're floating, there is still a latent movement that is existing in both of these apples because the molecules and the ions and everything are still moving. And so the 0-point energy theory is if we take away all of the friction, all of the mass, all of the things that are associated with this, can we harness the vibrational movement of the electrons, protons, neutrons that actually make up this thing and use that for propulsion? As far as I understand it, that's what 0-point energy is.
okay. I mean, that's a cool theory. We are so far from knowing that. I think it's cute that he thought that was going on.
I also want to point out, just to be completely clear, that EJ went to an arts college.
Yes.
I dropped out of that same arts college. Katie, you got history degrees.
History, but not science.
We are
There's
way
no
out of our
science.
depth here.
Yeah, dude, you got physics explained to you by theater school people.
Yeah. So there you go. It's a real treat for you.
We are all doomed. But
so anyway, so this is all a possibility, and I'll say, theoretical physicists are talking about this. It's a possibility. It's a thought experiment. It's a maybe, right? Nick Cook, the author, the journalist, believed that we had been working on it in the government and that we had gotten real close to cracking it. And he based this, for some reason, on an article written in a 1956 magazine that was titled "The G Engines Are Coming." This comic book style headline featured a drawing of a hovering blimp and a bunch of overzealous copy about how anti-gravity technology was about to revolutionize the entire world. And it said, "For in the United States and Canada, research centers, scientists, designers, and engineers are perfecting a way to control gravity, a force more powerful than the mighty atom. The result of their labors will be anti-gravity engines working without fuel, weightless airliners, and spaceships able to travel at 170,000 miles per second."
well, there's other technology in the world that's gone absolutely nowhere. This could just be one of those items.
Yeah, that was my exact thought, EJ.
Yeah.
Very possible that they were attempting to do something like that.
Yeah.
To no avail. It came to nothing.
Well, and this is my favorite article, favorite talking point from any of this, but this other quote from the article is claiming that big hitters like Lear jets were working on anti-gravity. They said, "Several other American aircraft manufacturers who would not spend millions of dollars on science fiction." And I'm like, okay, guys, here's the thing, though. When it comes to research, we spend obscene amounts of money on stuff that doesn't pan out.
That's how research works.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a facet of it. Look, let's talk real briefly about the VZ9 AV Avro car, the Avro car. This was a real-life flying saucer developed in the 1950s by Canadian and American engineers. Look it up if you're not familiar. It is a fucking UFO. And there was a time in the 1950s that we were actually developing a UFO. Canada started on this project in 1952. sunk $400,000 into the project. And this is not adjusted for inflation. This is money at that time, okay? $400,000. Their efforts were completely unsuccessful, and the government didn't want to keep spending taxpayer dollars on something that wasn't working. The US had no qualms like that, and they picked up where Canada left off and further financed it for $1.9 million. That encouraged Avro Canada to pitch in an additional $2.5 million. They wanted it to be a flying Jeep. That was the idea, like a troop transport, getting people back and forth. Didn't necessarily need to fly as high as a plane, but definitely like upper, above the trees and stuff.
Well, to draw a more serious comparison, I mean, I think that we all have seen the Nissan Cube and learned that just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right?
That was an ugly ass car. Yeah.
We've all learned some things just don't work.
But at least that you could drive down the road.
You could.
The Avro car, a total budget of $10 million over the course of the entire project, and it never worked. They could get it to hover about 3 feet off the ground, and then it became unstable. So they wasted $10 million on this thing.
But I bet you, I want to play the optimistic card.
Yeah.
I bet you they did learn a bunch of stuff though.
They totally
from trying to do that. We all learned this during COVID, right? Like the COVID vaccine, one of the reasons that it was able to be developed so quickly is because all of the research that was going into mRNA vaccines like prior to that. I mean, right. I don't want to say we were lucky. We were lucky in the timing that like all of this research had been done and was ready to be pushed into hyperdrive, and that got us over the edge, and we were able to get these vaccines. But like, it's just another thing that like sometimes we spend a lot of money on stuff that doesn't pan out, but it doesn't mean you don't get anything out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I shouldn't say that it's a waste per se. Research is very rarely a waste. It's more in reference to the headline there, or the byline there, which was, there's no way that Learjet and their contemporaries would sink a bunch of money into anti-gravity technology if it wasn't real and going to pan out. Like, they kind of would, though.
Yeah, they would. I also want to say that we definitely probably spend money on shit. It's not that there's no waste of money.
Did you did you ever hear of the Future Combat System? This was another one I learned while doing this. The Future Combat System, supposed to be a family of like 90s era networked combat vehicles. So like a sort of hive mind network for tanks and planes and stuff like that. It never worked. They could never figure out how to get it to work. They invested $18 billion in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Was it supposed to be like a Bluetooth kind of thing? Like connected, like where they would all talk to each other? Like what was...
I think it was probably drone-ish. I think that was the idea, like early drone tech. Yeah. So, I mean, would aerospace companies invest millions in R&D if it meant being on the forefront of a technological breakthrough? Even if it also meant you might lose all of it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. They absolutely would. Mm-hmm. Because you're right. I mean, for every couple hundred Avro cars, you get a stealth bomber, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, Nick Cook didn't see it this way. To Nick Cook, he became convinced that money must have been spent in a sensible way. And so he continued to pore over mid-century aeronautics journals, trying to find other references to zero gravity or this zero-point energy. And this led him to Thomas Townsend Brown, who had been involved in UFO research for years. Now, you might recognize Thomas Townsend Brown as one of the founders of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or NICAP, along with Donald Kehoe. Brown was only briefly the director, remember, before he was removed for misappropriating funds. Well, After that, he went on to work for several different engineering firms, allegedly trying to unlock this mystery, this anti-gravity mystery. And according to him, he had been able to demonstrate the power of anti-gravity by running a high-voltage electric charge through sharp conductors, creating a propulsive force, which would be really cool and very legendary if the same effect hadn't been discovered 200 years before he did it. A colleague of Brown's who observed his experiment in the 1950s explained that he had merely demonstrated ion wind, which is just kind of an electrostatic discharge. Now, it's unclear whether Brown himself was citing this as anti-gravity or if it was just the reporting around it that called it anti-gravity. It all gets kind of mixed up in this mythic next-gen tech that Nick Cook is starting to bump into during his research. And it also gets mixed up in one of my favorite conspiracy theories, the Philadelphia experiment.
Yay.
Woohoo.
How much do we know about the Philadelphia experiment?
I know some.
I know a little bit.
Okay.
I did a little bit of research.
So the story goes that in 1943, there was a Navy destroyer escort that vanished. And that happened because scientists had allegedly made the ship travel through time for a very brief period. Reporting surrounding this has been linked to all manner of conspiracy theories, from the Montauk Project to Area 51. It goes like this. In 1957, there was an author on UFO books, a Morris Jessup, who got summoned to the Office of Naval Research. And they presented him with a copy of his book, which had a series of handwritten notes in it that detailed an experiment where the USS Eldridge was rendered invisible to sight and radar for a brief period. Apparently, this was in full view of sailors on other ships stationed in Philadelphia's naval shipyard. The crew of the Eldridge suffered horrible fates as a result of this, with some actually phasing into different parts of the ship where they were permanently fused. Because apparently what happened, that they say anyways, the ship disappeared and then reappeared, but when you travel through time, you also have to account for the rotation of the Earth. Because if you reappear in the exact same spot where you disappeared, the Earth has moved ever so slightly. And so the wall behind you or the microphone that we're sitting in front of or something like that is going to move. And if you reappear, that thing might be in your way. And you might collide with it or fuse with it, which is what happened in the Philadelphia experiment.
And they say that there were witnesses to this.
Yeah, that the other ships that were in the naval shipyard saw this.
And so my next question is, what the hell happened to all these like mariners that were stuck in the ship hull or survived it, weren't stuck anywhere? Like, where are the witnesses? What's going on? Are they got gag orders or something? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Either gag orders, maybe they were executed.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my reading, so I took a very literal tack in that I went and read the Naval History and Heritage Command's entry on the Philadelphia experiment.
Uh-oh.
And then I also read the Office of Naval Research's information sheet on the Philadelphia experiment. So I went to the Navy source of like where they've had to address this conspiracy theory. And the Naval History and Heritage Command, so part of this, Matt, that you haven't mentioned yet, is that it did time travel. It went to Norfolk. It went from Philadelphia to Norfolk and then back to Philadelphia, is the version that I read.
So there's a rumor that it traveled through time, and then there's a rumor that it teleported to a different place. And
yes,
right. So I had heard Norfolk, and then there's another place, because there's also a rumor that it traveled to Montauk. Oh. Where it was part of the Montauk experiment and then traveled back too.
Okay.
It depends on what your source is.
Okay, so I will tell you the very simple version that the Naval History and Heritage Command addressed is that the machine time traveled and teleported from Philadelphia to Norfolk, and that ship mariners on the SS Andrew Furuseth in Norfolk saw the ship appear in Norfolk. So these are the witnesses that the Navy has officially like said that they've heard this version, and this is the version that they're addressing.
Okay.
So what I loved is they went through in 2 separate paragraphs. They went through the ship log of the USS Eldridge and the SS Andrew Furuseth for the period of the fall of 1943 when this is said to have happened. Mm-hmm. And they tracked exactly. They were like, it was here, and then it left for here, arriving on this date where it stayed until this date where it left on this mission, and then it came to here. It was great. I love that kind of precision. But no conspiracy theorists will care because it's coming from the military. But
very true.
The USS Eldridge was never in Philadelphia in the fall of 1943. Mm-hmm. And the Furuseth and the Eldridge were never in Norfolk at the same time during the fall of 1943. In fact, the Furuseth was in the Mediterranean from November of 1943 until January of 1944. It was in Norfolk briefly at certain points during the fall, but yes, I just wanted to put that out there for all of our listeners.
And wasn't the Eldridge in the Bahamas?
It was all over the place. It was in the Bahamas. It was in Casablanca. Both the Furuseth and the Eldridge were in Casablanca for a little bit of time during the fall of 1943. It was in New York. The Eldridge was mostly in New York, during New York Harbor during the fall of 1943. And then the Furuseth was back and forth and then was in the Mediterranean. So, but I thought that was really... I thought that I wanted to set a little timeline for everyone, a non-conspiracy timeline, that we do have ship logs for both of these ships, and the military has laid them out for you to read if you would like to.
That's great, and I thank you, Katie. I really appreciate that. And I guess my question is next, like, when did this conspiracy theory come about? And because I have an idea about timing and the witnesses and everything.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this fits with your theory. Okay. So all of this, remember, so you have this Morris Jessup, right? Who he's an author on UFO books. He gets summoned to the Navy and they say, look at this book. There's all these notes that apparently are talking about this experiment. The writer of these notes then began contacting Jessup directly under the pseudonym Carlos Miguel Allende.
Miguel.
It doesn't matter because it's not his real name anyway, but sure. Okay, fine.
We can call him by his real name. What was
his real name was Carl Allen. And
Carl.
Carl. And Carl Allen claimed that he had actually witnessed the disappearance of the Eldridge. He was on one of the ships that was in Philadelphia Harbor, saw it disappear, saw it come back, saw the people who were fused to it. The thing is, Carl Allen had a history of psychiatric illness and most likely fabricated this entire story out of thin air. But that did not stop Charles Berlitz and Bill Moore from jumping on the Philadelphia experiment in 1979 and published a very, very, very poorly researched book on it. And I am talking about the same Berlitz and Moore who would, a year later, write another poorly researched book, this one about the UFO crash at Roswell. And that's the same Bill Moore who would later become complicit in the dissemination of the Majestic 12 documents that we talked about in the last episode.
Wow, this is all on very shaky ground.
Oh, yeah. So is that kind of what you were thinking? This is now like the 80s is when this came about.
At this point, my thinking was that this all happened in the 40s.
The disappearance was 1943, if it's true.
So, like, it's not like the conspiracy theory came out in 45 and all those mariners could say, hold up, actually, no, none of this happened. This was all really put out into the public in the 80s, long after.
Yep.
So asking them would be very difficult. It would be 40 years plus after it all happened. A lot of them are dead. A lot of them are
Absolutely.
just like,
Yeah.
you know, so a lot of these mariners are no longer around at this point. So I guess that was my question. Like, when did this conspiracy theory hit? So.
Yep. Yeah, about 40 years later.
That's convenient.
Oh, yeah. And it's also very conspicuous, I think, that it's coming from these two people who are already very deeply, well, at the time, not so deeply, but are about to become very deeply entrenched with high strangeness, government conspiracies. And then ultimately, like we talked about, Bill Moore is going to become at least an accessory to the dissemination of these false documents, if not like part of the plan, you know, completely complicit, knowing that he was disseminating false documents.
Oh, I was just going to say the last little piece of like information that is interesting is that the USS Eldridge did have top secret technology on it at the time, which was, it's called degaussing, D-E-G-A-U-S.
Yes.
Degaussing,
Yep.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's where they put electrical cables around the hull of the ship. I'm being very reductive with this. And when you run a current through the cables, it like demagnetizes the ship. So it's useful if a ship is going through shallow waters with magnetic mines. It makes it so that the mines don't see the ship and won't explode, I guess.
Because the mines were magnetic. We saw
Right.
this in Godzilla -1, actually. When they were cleaning
okay.
up the mines, they used a wooden boat.
Yes.
So the mines wouldn't be magnetized to the boat.
Right.
And this was a way of making the ship non-magnetic so the mines wouldn't be attracted to it. Yes.
Right. And so, like, I guess they think part of the technology, real technology, that some of this conspiracy theory could be based on, one of that is this degaussing technology. And I love a little passive aggressive sentence in an official document. So I wanted to read this. This is a quote. It could be said that degaussing, correctly done, makes a ship, quote unquote, invisible to the sensors of magnetic mines, but the ship remains visible to the human eye, radar, and underwater listening devices. The passive aggressive part is the human eye piece.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, if you were just receiving a document that might, like a memo or something, that might not contain all of that information, maybe just use the phrase, you know, the experiment to make Eldritch invisible to mines was successful, something like that. You could kind of see how this could spawn a conspiracy theory.
But do we have any, because I did read about how the Office of Naval Research, when they received this annotated copy of Jessup's book, like they did create a bunch of copies of it with like notes and things and disseminate them to a few people. So I think that that's part of what is like fueled this conspiracy theory, like, oh, the Office of Naval Research took it seriously. But like, we don't really know why they did that. And to be fair, I don't know as much about it as you do, Matt, but like, I just didn't see anything where, like, I feel like the link to different technologies or that sort of thing must have developed over time. Because it feels like in the original sort of manifestation of it, there wasn't a lot of detail about what it was linking to exactly, just that it happened, right?
What are you saying, that in the original annotation, it was just that it disappeared and reappeared?
Is that what the original annotation said? Like, I haven't read those annotations.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that originally it was, because originally they thought it was just a vanishing and reappearing. And then it wasn't until later, until the book came out in 1979 by Berlitz and Moore, that they started linking it back to Thomas Townsend Brown and his electrostatic force fields and all
different
of that.
things. Okay, okay. Yeah, that's what that's the question I was asking. Is that like,
yeah,
it sounds like some of this other stuff that like the Navy's addressing, or that like is in the more extended version of the conspiracy theory, that was added on later.
Yeah, there's some weirdness in the intervening years where Carl Allen went into a bar and either beat up or got beat up by a naval seaman that he said was one of the time travelers and stuff like that. And it's really, but look, Carl Allen was, he suffered from psychiatric illness, and that is documented. And so a lot of this came from his own writings.
Okay.
In our narrative here, this is where Nick Cook has found this, and it fits in with his personal research because he's there trying to figure out the nature of Brown's experiments and their possible connection to anti-gravity. And then the other thing that drew Cook toward call this supernatural, was the Foo Fighters. Now, we're not talking about the 90s rock band famed for their song Everlong.
Though they do deserve a good long episode. They're excellent.
They do. We can return to our TMZ corner later.
Yes, 90s. Ugh,
Our 90s corner.
90s rock, man. Nothing like it. Okay.
Foo Fighters, in this context, were alleged mysterious fiery balls of light that seemed to stalk aircrafts during World War II. British and American pilots, primarily in the European theater, claimed that they would sometimes see these glowing balls of light flying near the wings of their aircrafts. And they were described as being in warm colors like reds, orange, white, and often seemed to be displaying evasive maneuvers, like making quick turns and jarring movements, or sometimes it would just like vanish from sight. A lot of the things that we still hear talked about in modern UFO reporting when people are talking about the Tic Tacs and stuff like that. So in December of 1944, the New York Times ran a story on the objects with the headline, Foo Fighter. Around the time, foo was used as a nonsense word.
Like phooey.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
My grandma used to say phooey.
I never
phooey.
made that connection.
Oh, phooey. I didn't either until now.
That's really good. I like that. Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever heard that before, Katie?
Oh, yeah,
Phooey?
phooey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, totally. My grandma used to say phooey.
Aw. I feel like it's a
She-
kind of a prohibition time thing or something. I
Yeah,
don't
she
know.
also used to say, I swanny,
What?
instead of like, I swear, or like,
I swanny.
Oh,
I swanny. This is a real deep cut, I think. So I don't know where it comes from, but like, I definitely think it was like, my grandmother was very religious, so I think she would never say something like, oh my God, or something like that. And I think even saying like, I swear was too like actual swear adjacent.
Okay.
So this is me totally making it up where it's
Yeah.
coming from. But there is a song called Way Down Upon the Swanee River.
Yeah, I love that song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
pretty.
I think was popular in like the 20s and 30s. So I'm wondering if it's like how you sort of like start to say a word and say another word. So maybe that's why she said, but I Swanee. That's
Yeah.
what she would say.
Interesting.
We've really gone aside now though, but Fooey for the Foo Fighters is a
Phooey.
good connection, EJ.
Thank you.
I like it.
So initial reports also called them Kraut fireballs and speculated that they could be some kind of Nazi weapon or aircraft.
Cool. Just a little racial slur in there for you.
They never attacked any of the planes. They chose instead to just toy with them before disappearing from sight. Most often seen at night, although sometimes pilots would report them in the day too. And to this day, we are not sure exactly what the Foo Fighters were. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have theories, and sometimes very compelling theories. It's just that we don't know precisely what they were. Do you want to take some guesses?
Okay, well, I think they could be reflections
Okay.
and refractions and things like that. What is the word?
Pareidolia?
No. Oh,
Apophenia?
no. Okay, we have to cut this
Parallax?
part. Yes, parallax.
Okay.
But
What's that?
Oh, parallax is interesting. So parallax is when you are moving and an object is staying still, and the way that the background shifts around the object. Does that make sense?
It's an optical illusion,
Yeah.
is what you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
but it's a bright light, so I'm not sure. I feel like it's mostly just
Yeah.
reflections. But go
Okay.
ahead, Katie. What do you think?
Katie?
I agree, Jay. I like reflections a lot. I hadn't thought of that one. I also don't know what color St. Elmo's fire is, but doesn't St. Elmo's fire happen when a plane is like moving really quickly through the air? So I don't really, again, like, I don't know much about it, but that would be one of my guesses and reflections. Though, did they see these things at night? Because
Yes. Yeah, they did. Primarily at night.
Reflections could still happen at night.
Yeah, through
With,
window
like-
screen, through windows.
Yeah.
You're looking out.
Go ahead.
You-
That's
you-
all. That's all I got.
You hit on what's pretty much the assumed reason, which is St. Elmo's fire, alongside pilot fatigue, flares, some of the more mundane explanations. But yeah, St. Elmo's fire is what people assume was the cause of the Foo Fighters. So let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, explain that to me because I don't know what I.
It's a weather phenomenon, and what happens is corona discharges from a plane's wings will create luminous plasma in an electrostatic field. So essentially what happens is, we saw this a lot in sailing ships. You would see these balls of light on the mast of a ship that would indicate that a lightning storm was coming, because it's essentially electrostatic that gets conducted into a ball of light rather than a bolt of lightning. It's like a ball of light.
The fuck? I've never heard of this before or seen this before. Like what?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it has to be a really specific weather condition with exactly the right type of conductor.
Any ship.
The ship that has an appropriate mast or conductor. Yeah,
Okay. Does it have to be a metal?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to conduct through wood.
I just don't understand this. Okay,
And
go
so,
ahead.
like,
Yeah.
this is happening with planes because of, like, they're flying through air that is, like, particularly electrostatically charged. And then, like, the conduction of the wings flying through the air, like, creates these balls of light. Like,
what's interesting...
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, what's interesting is that the Foo Fighters are pretty much exclusive to World War II. So it seems like it had something to do with the planes at the time. Like there was something about the way that the wings of the planes were designed during World War II and when they were flying over primarily the European theater again, that created this St. Elmo's fire on the tips of the wings.
I definitely feel like I need to look up a YouTube video of St. Elmo's fire.
It's crazy. And it'll move sometimes, which is really wild. Like you'll see flashing like lightning balls that will travel down the road or something like that.
The fuck?
Yeah,
And
it's
so
really
does this still
wild.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a weather phenomenon.
Could this explain so much of a percentage of things that they are saying is UFOs? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
How come in all these fucking congressional hearings we never hear the word St. Elmo's fire when they are talking about UAPs?
That's not a question that I can answer in the next hour.
I want to like run up and like backhand all these people, be like, okay, I just heard of this shit, and I'm like, come on, guys, this is probably what it is.
I mean, the reason that we're doing this podcast is really the answer to that question is because sometimes people don't know, sometimes people don't look at experts, sometimes people don't have these discussions, and sometimes people have narratives that they are trying to keep to and promote. So
to get funding for certain
Okay.
things.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
I think it's also really important to point out that the Foo Fighters, although most of our English reporting says that they were spotted in American and British planes, or adjacent to American and British planes, they were also spotted by Nazi planes as well. So if they were a Nazi weapon, they certainly wouldn't have been flying them against their own planes.
No,
Yes.
but that also, I think that's interesting and makes sense about the theory that it was something about the plane design, the plane wing design at the time that was making it happen, because all of the planes, like they were all building off of each other's technology. So they were all building the same kinds of planes.
Yep.
So that really makes sense.
Yep. And something about that place too, because European theater, we saw them. Pacific, not really so much.
Interesting.
So, and very different climates, right?
That's true.
So the idea of Foo Fighters as a Nazi weapon or craft took hold in the 1940s, then again in the 1990s. And that was thanks to an author named Renato Vesco, who was the author of Man-Made UFOs, 50 Years of Suppression. Vesco claimed that Foo Fighters were actually Nazi aerial mines that were powered by gas jets. They were designed to deliver an electrostatic discharge which would render nearby planes inoperable, kind of like a very crude electromagnetic pulse. Now, I don't really know what Vesco based that theory on. No technology like that existed at that time, and further invalidating his theory, like I said, the Germans and the Russians also saw them, and I don't know why the Germans would be trying to electromagnetically bomb their own planes. So I suspect it was probably something with St. Elmo's fire on the wings of those planes. And that explains why it was specific to that theater. It was across all of the planes, and why we don't really see it happen today. But Nick Cook read Renato Vesco's book on the Foo Fighters, and he connected the idea back to Thomas Townsend Brown and the Philadelphia experiment and that entire line of thinking because, again, electricity and electrostatic discharge. He was now convinced that the Foo Fighters were secret Nazi aircrafts powered by anti-gravity generated by Thomas Townsend Brown's experiment. Okay.
Fair. Yes. Gotcha.
This very speculative thinking led Nick Cook to Igor Wachowski. And they met up in Poland in Cook's hotel room in 1996. Finally, finding a friend who would listen to his ramblings, Wachowski dumped everything on Cook. The entire pseudo-history of Die Glocke, its probable use, these underground mine tunnels near Castle Kashaz, where he believed they had been developed. By the end of the night, these two had become best buds, and they decided, hey, let's go investigate these mines ourselves.
Aw. Little mid-90s intrigue.
Yeah.
That's
A little
adorable.
adventure. Let's do it.
Put on some Spice Girls.
I mean, listen, here's what I approve of.
Yes.
They wanted to go see for themselves.
Absolutely, right?
That is a good step. Now, I don't know that it helped them. However, when you believe or think something crazy might be happening, trying to go look with your own eyes is a good move.
Yes.
So I approve the thought.
And so we embark on one of the dumbest road trips in history.
More than Tommy Boy?
Actually, I think if you imagine it just like Tommy Boy, that's pretty much it right there.
Man. Who's Chris Farley? Which one is Chris Farley?
Nick Cook.
Nick Cook?
Nick Cook,
Oh.
100%.
No, I thought Nick. No, I would think that it would be David Spade because he's like the journalist, isn't he? Like the straightforward
Oh,
journalist.
actually, I think you're right. Yeah,
And,
Igor
like,
Wachowski is Nick
Wachowski's,
Cook.
like,
Yeah, Igor Wachowski
corrupting
is,
him every step
yeah.
of the way. Did you know this was true? Did you know this was true? Okay, got it.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
90s, 90s, 90s.
So along the way, they are continuing to yes and each other, and they're building this story. Nazi scientists, flying saucers, Foo Fighters, powered by electrostatic, black budgets funded by long-lost Nazi gold, clandestine research bases in the Antarctic, all of this shit, right? Mm-hmm. They arrive at the Wenceslas mines, and they, at this point, have utterly convinced each other that this story is 100% true.
And when they arrived, their car was a wreck.
It's missing a door.
It's missing a door because he fucked up at the gas station. A deer jumped in there. All bad.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And so to their astonishment, they found a series of strange structures around these mines that reinforce their opinion something weird is going on here. First, they discovered the remains of a power plant or factory. So this is a huge building made of brick, completely destroyed. The roof had collapsed. There's black marks indicating that the ruins were the results of either a fire or maybe even a bombing. And this is sort of overgrown in a field, and there's woods around it, and they start searching deeper into the woods surrounding the mine complex. And here they found a circular foundation shaped like a dodecahedron. That's a 12-sided figure. 12 columns, 30 to 40 feet, 10 to 12 meters high. There's no roof to this, but these pillars are topped with like crossbars that run around the perimeter. So if you just kind of imagine a concrete Stonehenge, that's what this thing looks like. And It's in the middle of nowhere. It's completely overgrown. If you've seen the photos of it, it looks creepy. And it's weird. It's weird that it's just here and abandoned.
How wide is it? You said it was tall, but how wide is it?
It
like,
is.
Is it like more? Is it like a skinnier giant tube or like a wider?
Oh no. It's probably. I don't have the exact measurement, but I'm gonna say it's at least 20, 30 feet wide.
Okay, wide.
Like big. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So Witkowski's completely baffled. He has no idea what it is. Nick Cook, however, recognizes it. He's an aviation journalist, and he's seen something like this before. Normally, you would have this covered in a netting, and it would be used for helicopter rotor tests and helicopter test flights. And basically what would happen is the netting would protect the surrounding environment in case something went wrong with that rotor. It wouldn't just go flying off. It would go and it would hit the netting, right? So to Cook, this is the smoking gun of the Die Glocke project. It is a flight testing facility next to the underground complex, a stone's throw from Hitler's estate, or not estate exactly, but Hitler's future underground bunker, right? He believes this is it. We have found the location of Die Glocke, where the bell was flown.
Was flown?
Yeah, they tested it there.
But you just said that it's a thing for helicopters.
Yeah, like it's literally that's like going into a McDonald's and being like, look at this fryer where they made fries. This is definitely where Barbies were made.
I just want to, because this isn't a video podcast, I want to point out that Katie has been holding her face in her hands in an ultimate look of exasperation right now.
EJ and I both had the most confused looks on our faces.
I'm just trying to understand, man.
The point is to Cook, this is a flight test facility. And so they found a flight test facility in the middle of nowhere. What the fuck does this mean? This means that this is where they were testing
But
Die
it's
Glocke.
not the middle of nowhere. It's in the underground bunkers where we know a legitimate research project and like they were moving all their military test things underground.
There's
it's
context
not the middle
everywhere.
Of nowhere.
It's also next to a power plant, but we'll come back to that in just a second.
Okay, go ahead, Cook.
So they believe, holy shit, this is where Die Glocke was being flown. We finally found it. We cracked this case.
This really is a stupid buddy 90s comedy.
I told you this was a dumb road trip. The funny thing about history, especially recent history, is it's not hard to find what things are. And I will agree that when I first saw, they call it the fly trap, because that's a helicopter fly trap is what it is. So they call it the henge or the fly trap. And I agree that when you first look at that structure at the Wenceslas mines does look like a helicopter rotor testing pad. But it is not. And it is not a launch pad for a secret anti-gravity device either.
It's not. So it's not a helicopter testing pad.
No, it's not.
Matt, you really tricked me.
I really did.
You really tricked us. Oh, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, if you Google Die Glocke henge or
I just Googled structure at the Wenceslas mine.
oh, that'll work too. Yeah.
And
yeah, I
then
mean you can see it. It's pretty
I
clear.
looked at it.
Yeah. But
Like,
Die Glocke henge will also get you there and you can see it.
I prefer not to plug my algorithm with like conspiracy theory stuff. I don't want it to show me.
Katie? My entire algorithm is
all Matt's
conspiracy
life.
theory stuff.
Okay.
Though the structure at the Wenceslas mine, the first link that comes up is the Wikipedia for the Die Glocke conspiracy theory.
See, it's coming already. Okay.
That's fine. Okay.
So anyway, and I will admit, it was not easy for me to find the true nature of this location because I don't speak Polish. But it also wasn't what I'd consider hard. According to Landmark Scout, this whole complex was the Dynamite Nobel AG plant. So it was a dynamite factory.
Cool.
It was set up in 1865 by the Swedish inventor Alfred Nobel and his brothers. The same Nobel who's responsible for founding the Nobel Peace Prize. He's also the inventor of dynamite, which has several facilities in a bunch of countries, including the U.S.
Extremely ironic.
I know, right?
Maybe that's why he did it.
Maybe.
Kind of like Oppenheimer. He was like,
Right.
oh, fuck.
Yeah, I gotta do good
I just
now.
did something really bad.
Yeah.
In Nobel's defense, though, dynamite is not necessarily a violent weapon. In fact, they were most likely using the dynamite from the plant to carve out the Wencesless mines, and that's why they were side by side, right?
Yes.
So during World War II, explosives and ammunitions were manufactured at the dynamite plant. Workers were shipped in from the nearby Gross Rosen concentration camp, and some of the dynamite was actually being used in Project Risa to build the underground tunnels and the bunker that Hitler was going to live in. Given the nature of this site and the fear of unexploded ordnance that might still be there, the whole place was closed off after the war. That's common, it's easier to cordon off dangerous sites than attempt a really rapid cleanup. So the dynamite plant sat abandoned for decades, slowly getting overgrown, slowly getting scarier, until Nick Cook and Igor Wachowski stumbled in there. Now, the henge, this weird concrete structure, that was actually the base of a cooling tower. And that was very easily debunked by Gerald Schlem, who visited the site 4 years after Wachowski's book was published. After his exploration, Schlem actually passed a power plant on his way home and photographed the cooling tower. The base is exactly the same. Not kind of sort of the same. It is exactly the same. And that makes sense, right? Cook and Wachowski had already discovered the remains of a power plant nearby the dynamite plant. Of course they had a cooling tower. Unfortunately, our intrepid heroes didn't do any of the legwork that I did to investigate what the site actually was. Instead, they plowed forward with their theory. Wachowski published his ramblings in a book called The Truth About the Wunderwaffen, and he linked the Nazi bill to Foo Fighters and claimed that the Reich had been flying some kind of anti-gravity aircrafts throughout the entire war. Cook presented his findings to a man that he called Dr. Dan Marcus, which is apparently a pseudonym. Marcus ran all the findings through a series of modelings and came up with a very startling conclusion. Wachowski had been wrong about the device, or at least partially wrong. While anti-gravity might have been their intention, like they might have set out to make an anti-gravity device, there was a side effect of running the machine. Marcus said they were trying to generate a torsion field. If you generate a torsion field of sufficient magnitude, the theory says you can bend the 4 dimensions of space around the generator. The more torsion you generate, the more space you perturb. When you bend space, you also bend time. So,
But can you bend it like Beckham?
it's a little bit late. Is that like 2000? We've broken out of the 90s at that point, I think.
I think it wasn't. I think so, because I think that happened when I was in college.
Damn it.
Though David Beckham himself is a 90s icon.
Absolutely.
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, so is the torsion field like an actual thing? Or is this part of something that they were making up as part of what they say was happening?
Yeah, so I'm fairly certain, again, I'm not an astrophysicist, but I'm fairly certain that Nick Cook was conflating time dilation with time travel. So time dilation is part of a theory of relativity that says that the perception of time can change based on the relative motion of the observers. And essentially, if you're traveling in a ship and approaching the speed of light, anyone who's watching you perceives time passing at a different rate than you who are inside the ship. Mm-hmm. The observer and you are separated because you're moving so fast. Right? Mm-hmm. Does that kind of make sense?
That's fascinating.
It's
Yeah.
depicted actually really well when you watched like X-Men First Class, I think, did this. Also, I guess Age of Ultron, where they had the guys who could run really fast. The Flash does this too, because the Flash is able to move at his regular speed while he's running fast, and so he's able to manipulate objects. Although, So say I drop a glass of water, the Flash can run up, grab the glass, catch it, and put it back in my hand. Time is moving slower to him than it is to me, right? That's time dilation.
Gotcha.
Theoretical physics is weird, right? Anyway. But this convinced Nick Cook that the Nazis had actually stumbled onto a way to bend the fabric of space-time. Not a substantial time machine, not a travel back and look at the dinosaurs, but enough to create what Dr. Marcus was calling a time bubble, a very brief stoppage in time. So more like Galaxy Quest. You can travel back in time and fix one decision, right? Something like that, anyway. For Cook, this all left a really big question, which is, if this technology was real, and remember, he was convinced that it was, because he had seen the henge, he had experienced all of it. What happened to Die Glocke? What happened to the scientists who worked on it? Now, Igor Wachowski thought he had the answer to that. And he pointed to records showing that the Nazi SS executed 62 individuals near the Wenceslas mines in April of 1945. Wachowski believed that had been intended to cover up the Die Glocke project and keep the secrets of the bell from falling into Allied hands.
You know what I think it was?
What?
You said they had prisoners from the concentration camp working at the plant?
From Gross Rosen. Yep.
Yes, that's who they killed.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely who they killed. Yeah. Yeah. The truth is actually really horribly brutal.
And they killed them because? Just because?
Because...
Yeah, there was evidence of the concentration camps. Because they were doing that to all the prisoners. They took them on these long marches.
Death marches.
Yeah. It wasn't because they were
marches.
hiding information from them. Or, they didn't want information about Die Glocke to get out. It was World War II.
Yeah.
They were trying to hide as much evidence of the concentration camps as possible.
That's what they were hiding
basically.
the evidence for, not the fake Die Glocke. Yes.
Yes. Also, I just want to say, you're the bad guy when you're afraid your victims will tell other people about the atrocities that you've committed and you start executing them. That means you're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Conflating the deaths of so many innocent people with silly stories about crazed Nazi scientists and futuristic weapons is very powerful rhetoric. It changes the narrative. The Nazis are no longer humans choosing an evil path, killing each other in desperate fear of persecution. It's now the story of the genius of Nazi science and a technology so powerful that their superiors must kill to protect it. It undermines the truth that the Nazis were terrified that they had overplayed their hand, they were going to lose and be punished for these atrocities. It makes it seem like they had this secret technology that was too powerful to get out instead. The other explanation for the bell's disappearance comes out of Pennsylvania in the 1960s. And this theory comes from Joseph P. Farrell, author of The SS Brotherhood of the Bell. Farrell is a Christian theologian who writes some of the most batshit theories I have read, including the Giza Death Star Deployed, in which he claims that the pyramids were some kind of giant weapon and the Valley of Kings was an industrial military complex.
When?
When? Oh, ancient Egypt.
Ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
cool.
ancient Egypt.
Yeah. All right.
Ancient aliens. That's some ancient aliens shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I can't believe I have to say this, but the pyramids are not a power plant. They are burial monuments to the pharaohs. We have literally thousands of pages of research from actual historians that proves this. Just because some of the hieroglyphics look like modern light bulbs doesn't mean that the Egyptians had nuclear capability. And do you know this picture, Katie, that the Egyptian light bulb? Look up.
No.
Katie doesn't want to look this up because she's going to have her own
I'm destroying your entire Google feed. Hieroglyphic light bulb. You should see that there's a guy holding a thing conspicuously close to his crotch.
Yes.
Yeah, you see this? And it has,
has like a cord.
Yep.
That's not a light bulb.
It's not a light bulb. It's not a light bulb.
It's like a plant with a snake in it.
Yeah, it's
That's what it looks like
it's
to me.
not. Yeah, it's not a filament. It's a snake. You can tell because it has a snake's head.
Yeah, and it's curvy like a snake.
Yeah.
And there's some person bowing down. Like, this is not.
Okay.
This is not that. But okay, I was actually expecting something to like really actually look like a light bulb, and I was gonna be like, oh, that's weird that they like.
No, it looks nothing like a light bulb.
No.
It looks like a container with a snake in it.
Those things, containers with snakes in them, definitely existed.
So anyway, this guy, the Farrell, he postulated that Die Glocke was recovered by the Americans, who spent the next 20 years tinkering and altering it before sending it on a test flight. Now, one of those test flights failed and became the UFO crash at Roswell. But allegedly, on my birthday, December 9th, 1965, not that I was born in 65, but December 9th,
old. Yes.
that flight ended with Die Glocke, the bell, crashing into the woods near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
Ooh, where's that?
It's like Western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
For those familiar with UFO mythology, Kecksburg is kind of the East Coast Roswell. 1965, there was this large fireball that was seen in the sky in several states and Ontario, Canada. The fireball smashed into the woods outside of Kecksburg, south of Pittsburgh in western PA. A cleanup effort was immediately launched with NASA scientists cordoning off the entire area. And the few lucky witnesses who got to see it saw, apparently, a large object shaped like an acorn, 10 feet long, covered in hieroglyphics. That was loaded onto a flatbed truck and shipped out of the area. Depending on your source, it may have been seen again later at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the same place where the aliens were allegedly taken after the UFO crash at Roswell. To an outsider like Farrell, this sounds possible. You know, an acorn-shaped craft, 10 feet high, actually does kind of fit the description of Die Glocke, right? And if it's true that there were hieroglyphics on it, that fits perfectly with his theory that the Egyptians had advanced technology, although I don't really know how that connects to a German invention or re-engineer of a crashed spacecraft that was found in Italy, but let's not get lost in silly details like that.
Yes. They didn't.
The fascinating thing about Kecksburg is that unlike most UFO crash stories, a lot of it's actually real. So something did enter the upper atmosphere, and sections of the wood were cordoned off by local law enforcement. And it was because of a spacecraft, but not in the way you might immediately think. Any theories on what this could be?
I actually read about it,
Okay.
so I will. All right, I read a line or two about it, so I think I know what it is, but I'll let EJ.
EJ.
Okay, a spacecraft?
Yeah. I'll tell you, the hieroglyphics are actually the key to it.
Oh, so there really were writings on it.
There were.
I really don't know. I was gonna say it was like an industrial toilet or something that flew off of
A plane or something.
Yeah, like space shit or something, literally. No, I don't know.
No, it was a Russian satellite
Yep.
that fell down.
Yeah.
And the hieroglyphics looked Cyrillic. They were Cyrillic.
Yeah. It didn't fall down. It deorbited, I think it's the official term for when a satellite falls down.
Well, also, it's important to point out that it never made it out of low Earth orbit. The Cosmos 96, launched in November of 1965. They intended for it to travel to Venus. And we know all this. Like, we have a record of the launch of the Cosmos 96. But there was a fuel line rupture in it, and it never made it out of low Earth orbit. It only managed about 16 days in flight before re-entering the atmosphere on December 9th, 1965. That re-entry happened over the Great Lakes region. And as it came crashing down, the intense atmospheric friction caused it to burn, looking, for everyone watching, like a giant fireball. Luckily, the U.S. Air Force had been following the fate of this poor Russian satellite and knew where it was coming down and what was going to happen. So they ordered state police in Pennsylvania and Ohio to close some of the roads. And that night, Air Force personnel did indeed cordon off the site. Today, we're still kind of divided on whether the Cosmos 96 was the actual fireball or whether there was also a meteor shower that night as well. But no matter what, it was a Russian satellite that came down. And that's probably why people saw, quote unquote, hieroglyphics on the side. They were seeing Cyrillic writing. No matter what, that's a tantalizing bit of UFO lore, and it's the perfect fodder for someone like Farrell, who's already a little fringe with his theories. All right? These days, there's a new spin on these Nazi scientific advances. What if Igor Wachowski and Nick Cook claim is true? If that is true, what are the possible applications of this anti-gravity machine? Sure, like we could create flying saucers, but this zero-point energy could revolutionize the world too. It's creating a massive power surge from a minimal or like non-existent source. Think about what that could do for us. It could solve so many of the world's problems. Zero-point energy fixes climate change because you don't need fossil fuels or electrical generators. Suddenly, all of the man-made problems of the last century and a half are rendered null by a single piece of technology allegedly developed by the Nazis. If that tech exists, and if it's been withheld from the public, that creates a crisis. It means our governments have been deliberately allowing the planet to be destroyed. Not only does this feed anti-governmental conspiracy theories, it makes the Nazis into a kind of savior.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Because they were the ones who invented the thing that could fix all of our problems, but now the bureaucrats are keeping that information locked away from you. It means that we have to re-examine the Nazi Party and rethink their contributions and their platforms and look to them for our salvation.
Katie's face is great.
I'm so annoyed on so many levels. I was annoyed before you even got to the end part, but keep going.
To me, it's fucking terrifying. Not just because it's baseless, but because the last thing we should be doing is recontextualizing the Nazis as the good guys. In truth, there is no real substantial evidence of Die Glocke or a Nazi superweapon in the 80 years or so after the war. Despite constant speculation, the only thing conspiracy theorists have to show for it are far-fetched connections made by twisting logic and history. The truth is much simpler. By the time the Bell would have been in development, the Nazis were on the back foot. They didn't have money, they didn't have manpower or scientific minds to develop anything even remotely close to an anti-gravity or time dilation machine. And ask yourself this. Knowing what we know, that by 1945, the Nazis were losing, desperate, driven underground. If they had a supreme weapon, or even the beginnings of a supreme weapon, why didn't they use it? Why? In all of those final battles, was there never a flying saucer, or a zero-point energy machine, or a laser cannon, or anything like that? Hitler killed himself because he knew the end was coming. He ordered the destruction of the camps, the execution of the prisoners, in a last-ditch attempt to save his empire. Do you really think that that type of person with that type of attitude wouldn't use a nuclear option if he had it? Do you really think the Nazis wouldn't have tried everything, including a super weapon, to turn the tide? They knew that they were fucked, and they knew that they had nothing. That's why Hitler killed himself, and that's why they lost. There was no super weapon. So, where does this leave Die Glocke, the Wunderwaffen, the Nazi flying saucers? It should be relegated to the realm of science fiction. But still, to this day, conspiracy theorists like to pull out the idea of Nazi engineering feats and mythical devices as proof that the government has been hiding the truth from you and history as you know it is a lie. To me, that is a very nefarious message. It speaks to Ernest Zundel and Miguel Serrano and all of these fringe neo-Nazi apologists. S.D. Tucker, in his book The Saucer and the Swastika, compares the myth of the Nazi UFO and Die Glocke to a very elaborate advertising campaign. It doesn't matter if these stories make sense. It doesn't matter if they frequently contradict each other and actual historical evidence, because retelling them isn't about convincing anyone that aliens are real or Hitler escaped to Antarctica on a flying saucer or anything like that. It's about opening the door to real, ugly ideologies of Nazism. Much like advertising hooks with sex, comedy, whatever, Nazism hooks their followers with the occult, the Fortean, the downright outrageous, and the mistrust of government. They use these inroads to start real conversations, ones about genocide, bigotry, and racism. Funneled through the world of conspiracy theories, these ideas become more digestible and appear safe, and that makes them even more dangerous. But I'll leave you with this. The science around evolution has proven time and time again that the true superior race will never be a monocultural or monoracial one. Our diversity makes us more powerful as a species. The Nazis were a party, a movement, a fanatical pseudo-religion based on long-debunked junk science. Adolf Hitler used the scientifically incorrect theory of eugenics to justify one of the most evil campaigns in modern history, all while lying and manipulating his followers through propaganda. Driven by his own hubris, he launched a brutal military campaign that was always doomed to fail. For all the claimed German efficiency, the Nazis lost because they didn't have the money, the resources, or the manpower they needed to fight the war that they themselves started. All they had was hate, and hate lost the war. The Allies won through cooperation because a single monoracial force is nothing compared to the power we wield when we stand together against evil. I know that it feels like there is a rising tide right now, but we beat them before, and I really believe that together we can beat them again. Now, once more, fuck Nazis.
Fuck Nazis.
Fuck Nazis.
And fuck the current rising fascism.
Yep. Collaboration is key, but you seem more optimistic than me, Matt. I love a good optimistic note.
Yeah.
I think the thing to take away from this more than anything else, if you take away anything from this, is to understand the power that these fucking things wield. Like, because when we bump into these things, I think that we have a tendency to laugh them off. And we laughed a lot in this, we really did. But never forget that this is being used as an inroad to get people to say the government is lying to you. You have to rethink the Nazis. Don't believe what the historians are telling you. And that's fucking dangerous. It's really dangerous.
Because then you turn around and you're suddenly a neo-Nazi.
Absolutely. I mean, that was Ernest Zundel's whole plan, right? And he knew it. He was very aware of it. There's just, I get in, I talk about UFOs for 15 minutes, and then for 45 minutes, I can talk about racism, basically.
No, but you know what? If you want a palate cleanser and a laugh, man, maybe pop a gummy if you want, but watch Tommy Boy. Watch the fucking movie Tommy Boy. That is the best, I think, that is one of the greatest comic movies ever made. I swear to God, I almost died when I rewatched it again, and I rewatched the scene where Chris Farley is like talking to the one manufacturer, and he's like running through like a car crash scenario on the desk. And he gets into it really deeply, and it's like fucking horrifying. And it's Chris Farley, man. Oh my God, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. It was so fucking funny. Anyway,
He's a legend.
Man, if you need a palate cleanser, man, just the 90s all the way. Just get yourself some sweet 90s action.
For a palate cleanser from the Slaying Monsters side, we'll be going completely different with our next series. Definitely stick around for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And thank you all for coming on this journey down World War II history and Die Glocke. I hope we answered some questions for you. It's a big, big topic to cover. So, and we were able to touch on a lot of stuff, which was a lot of fun. So thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you.
My takeaway is look out for each other. Reach out to each other. Check in on each other.
Check in on your friends. Never a bad motto.
Especially when your friend starts talking to you about 0 point energy and how there are deep underground military bases where they are developing secret weapons.
Yes.
Just be like, dude, you okay? You good?
You okay, man?
You all right?
Right?
Yeah.
Let's
Check
go
in
get a
on
drink.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hang out IRL.
Yes. IRL. That's
And
what we need right now.
maybe go along with it. If they want to go investigate the bases, go along with them. And just be ready to, Google.
Help them out.
Just give a little Google.
Little Google. Little Google never hurt anyone.
Nope.
Well, maybe it did.
I'm going to break your Google algorithm yet, Katie.
It's fine.
Thanks, everybody.
Be safe out there.
Next time, you awake in the darkness of your own grave, gasping for air beneath 6 feet of earth. Above you, the scraping shovels and chanting voices call to you, a mystical melody that commands you to rise from your grave and join the army of the undead.
Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the 40 in History podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials at Slaying Monsters Podcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.